The clinking of wine glasses filled the air at her parents' sprawling mansion, a place that always felt more like a museum than a home. Crystal chandeliers cast soft light over the polished hardwood floors, and the hum of conversation mixed with faint jazz from a speaker somewhere in the corner. I stood near the edge of the room, holding a glass of red I hadn't touched, watching the crowd of Camille's family and friends celebrate her new corporate job offer. It was a big deal, her stepping into a finance role at a tech giant, a chance to climb the ladder she'd been eyeing for years. I was proud of her, even if she didn't think I had any right to be. The room buzzed with excitement, her cousin snapping photos, her father nodding approvingly at anyone who'd listen about his daughter's ambition. But then her mother, Elaine, raised her glass, her voice cutting through the chatter like a blade wrapped in silk. To Camille finally leveling up and leaving behind the freeloaders, she shouted, her eyes flicking toward me for just a moment. Laughter rippled through the room. It wasn't cruel, not exactly, but it carried that sharp edge of judgment I'd grown used to. I felt the weight of every glance, every smirk, as if I were some stray dog they'd let in out of pity. Then Camille turned to me, her lips curling into that mocking smile she'd perfected over the past year. Seriously, Mason, she said, loud enough for the whole room to hear, get a life. Stop hanging around Jake just to feel important. He's rich and successful. You're not. The words hit like a punch I didn't see coming. The air went still, the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. Her uncle Darius chuckled nervously, muttering something about tough love, but no one else spoke. I could have said something back, could have let the anger bubbling in my chest spill out. But instead, I just smiled. Not the weak, pleading kind of smile that begs for approval. No, this was different. It was the kind of smile that knows something the room doesn't. Because Camille, for all her ambition and sharp words, had no idea whose signature was on her brand new paycheck. I took a sip of the wine, letting the bitterness of it match the moment. Around me, the party started to hum again, people pretending the awkwardness hadn't happened. Elaine glided over to Camille, whispering something that made her laugh, and I watched my wife soak it all in, her moment, her victory. She looked beautiful, I'd give her that. Her dark hair was swept up, her dress hugging her frame like it was made for her. But beauty doesn't soften a sting like that. I'd heard her jabs before, the little comments about my lack of drive, or how I was lucky to know someone like Jake Lawrence, her idea of a real success story. She'd say it at dinners, at gatherings like this, always with that same smirk, like she was doing me a favor by pointing out my flaws. And every time, I'd let it slide. Not because I was spineless, but because I was waiting. See, I'd learned something about people over the years. They show you who they are when they think you've got nothing to offer. Camille thought I was just a guy coasting through life, leaning on my old college buddy Jake to feel relevant. She didn't know the truth, and I hadn't told her, not out of fear, but because I wanted to see how far she'd go. Tonight, though, her words cut deeper than usual. Maybe it was the crowd, the way her family leaned into her insult like it was a punchline they'd all been waiting for. Or maybe it was the way she didn't even glance back to see if I was okay. Either way, something shifted inside me. I set my glass down on a nearby table, the stem catching the light for a moment. Across the room, Camille was laughing with her cousin, already moving on from her little performance. I could have walked over, pulled her aside, and laid it all out right then, told her everything. But where's the value in that? Truth isn't just words, it's timing. And tonight wasn't the night. Not yet. Instead, I slipped through the crowd, nodding politely at a few familiar faces. Uncle Darius caught my arm as I passed, his breath heavy with whiskey. So, Mason, what do you actually do these days? He asked, his voice loud enough to draw a couple of glances. It was the same question he always asked, like he was digging for dirt. I gave him my usual vague answer, something about consulting, helping out with Jake's projects. He nodded, unimpressed, and let me go. That's how it always went with her family. To them, I was the guy who didn't quite fit, the one who married up and hadn't earned it. As I stepped onto the balcony for some air, the cool night hit my face, grounding me. The city sparkled below, all sharp lights and distant noise. I leaned against the railing, replaying her words in my head. He's rich and successful. You're not. If only she knew. If only she had any clue that the man she mocked was the one who'd built the very foundation she was now standing on. I wasn't angry, not exactly. It was more like disappointment, mixed with a strange kind of curiosity. How would she react when she found out? Would she laugh it off, like she did tonight? Or would it shake her world just enough to make her see me differently? I pulled my phone from my pocket, the screen lighting up with a text from Jake. Heard about the party. You good? He wrote. I smirked. Jake knew me better than anyone, knew why I kept my cards close, why I let Camille think what she wanted. I typed back a quick reply, all good. Just waiting for the right moment. The party noise drifted out to the balcony, Camille's laughter cutting through it all. I straightened up, brushing a speck of dust off my jacket. This wasn't the end of anything, just the beginning of something else. She could have her toast, her moment, her applause. I didn't need any of it. What I had was better control, patience, and a truth that would hit harder than any insult she could throw. I stepped back inside, ready to play my part a little longer, my smile still in place. The game wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The loft where it all started still lingers in my mind sometimes. A cramped space with peeling paint, secondhand furniture, and the faint hum of cheap fans struggling against summer heat. Jake and I spent countless nights there, hunched over laptops, fueled by Red Bull and stubborn dreams. That's where Pulse Logic was born, where I wrote the first lines of code for an AI system that would change everything. Now, years later, I stood in my home office, a sleek room with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city skyline, staring at a screen filled with data only I could untangle. People see Jake as the golden boy, the guy with the perfect smile who charms talk show hosts and investors alike. They see his polished boots clicking across stages, his name in bold on magazine covers. But behind every step he takes is me. I'm the architect, the coder, the ghost who built the system from scratch. And I chose to stay in the shadows, not because I'm ashamed, but because I wanted to see who Camille would be when she thought I had nothing to offer. It's not that I lied to her. I just never corrected her assumptions. When we met, I was already deep into the company, working late nights while Jake handled the public side. She'd ask about my day, and I'd keep it vague, talk about projects, or helping Jake out. She filled in the blanks herself, deciding I was some aimless guy riding my friend's coattails. At first, I thought it was funny, her little jabs about my lack of ambition. But over time, those jabs got sharper, especially after she started climbing her own career ladder. She'd come home from her old job, all fired up about some new promotion, and toss out lines like, "Maybe you should try harder, like Jake does." I'd just nod, let it slide, and go back to debugging code that powered a $120 million enterprise. Why didn't I tell her? It's hard to explain, even to myself sometimes. Part of it was curiosity. I wanted to know if she'd love me for who I was, not what I'd built. Another part was pride. I didn't want her respect just because of a title or a bank account. And maybe, deep down, I was testing her, seeing how far she'd go with her assumptions. She never asked the right questions, never pushed for details. Instead, she built this story in her head about me being less driven, less capable, less everything. And I let her, because the truth was mine to hold until I was ready to share it. That morning, I sipped coffee at my desk, the steam curling up as I scrolled through emails. Most were routine, updates from the dev team, bug reports, a few investor queries Jake had forwarded. He was good at the big picture stuff, the handshakes and headlines. But the guts of the company? That was me. Every algorithm, every server, every line of code that kept Pulse Logic running had my fingerprints on it. We'd agreed early on to split the roles. He'd be the face. I'd be the foundation. It worked. He got the spotlight. I got the freedom to create without cameras in my face. And it kept things clean. No ego clashes, no power struggles. Just two friends who trusted each other to do what they did best. Camille was getting ready for her big first day at her new job. I could hear her in the bedroom, humming as she picked out an outfit. She'd been talking about this job nonstop for weeks, how it was her chance to finally make something of herself, as if she hadn't already been doing that. I didn't mind her excitement. It was one of the things I loved about her when we first met, that fire in her eyes when she talked about her goals. But lately, that fire came with a shadow, a need to prove she was better than me, better than where we'd started. She walked into the kitchen, her heels clicking on the hardwood, and grabbed her bag from the counter. "Don't wait up," she said, barely looking at me. "I've got a lot to learn today." "Good luck," I said, keeping my tone light. "You'll kill it." She paused, just for a second, like she was surprised I'd said something nice. Then she gave a quick nod and left, the door clicking shut behind her. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. She had no idea where she was headed, not just to some shiny corporate office, but to a place I'd built from nothing. It wasn't about tricking her. It was about letting her walk her own path, even if that path led her straight to the truth I'd been holding back. Later that day, Jake called. You sure about keeping this quiet? He asked, his voice crackling through the speakerphone. She's gonna flip when she finds out. Let her find out when the time's right, I said, tapping a pin against my desk. She's got her shot now. Let's see what she does with it. He laughed, that easy laugh that made people trust him instantly. You're colder than I am, man. I'd have spilled it by now. Nah, I said, smirking. You'd have made a PowerPoint about it. We both chuckled, but there was a weight to the moment. Jake knew why I was doing this, knew it wasn't about revenge or ego. It was about clarity, about seeing who Camille really was when the masks came off. I hung up and turned back to my screen, pulling up the latest system diagnostics. The numbers flowed like a language I'd invented, each one a piece of the empire I'd created. Camille could think what she wanted for now. She could call me a freeloader, a shadow, whatever made her feel taller. But the truth? It was bigger than her words, bigger than her smirk at that party. I stood and walked to the window, the city stretching out below like a map of possibilities. Somewhere out there, Camille was stepping into her new role, probably charming her colleagues, already planning her next move. She thought she was entering Jake's world, a place where he was the genius and I was just a name she mocked. But she was wrong. This wasn't Jake's world, it was ours. And sooner or later, she'd see my hand in every piece of it. Not because I'd force her to, but because the truth always finds a way out. I went back to my desk, the coffee now cold in its mug. There was work to do, always more work. A bug in the latest patch needed fixing, and the dev team was waiting for my notes. I dove in, the code pulling me into that quiet place where everything made sense. Camille could have her moment, her new desk, her big plans. I didn't need to chase her applause. What I had was enough control, purpose, and a secret that would shift everything when it finally came to light. For now, I'd keep building, keep waiting, keep being the man she didn't see. Because when the curtain finally lifted, it wouldn't just be about her job or her paycheck. It'd be about who we both were when the lies fell away. The morning sun filtered through the blinds in my home office, casting thin stripes across my desk as I sipped coffee and scrolled through a report from the dev team. It was just another day, lines of code to review, a server glitch to troubleshoot, the usual rhythm of keeping Pulse logic humming behind the scenes. But then my phone buzzed with a call from Jake, his voice carrying that mix of amusement and urgency he saved for big news. Her resume landed in HR, he said, cutting straight to it. Camille's. She applied for the finance analyst role. Got credentials, too. Want me to block it? I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking softly, and stared out the window at the city waking up below. Block it? The thought flickered, tempting for a moment. It'd be easy to keep her out, to keep my world separate from hers. But that wasn't the point. I'd been watching her build her own story about me, about us, for years, letting her think I was just a guy scraping by on favors. This was a chance to see what she'd do with a real opportunity, no strings attached. Let her rise or fall on her own, I told him, my voice steady. Jake chuckled, like he'd expected that answer. You're a weird one, Mace. All right, I'll let HR know to keep it fair. I hung up and set the phone down, the weight of my choice settling in. Fair. That's what I wanted, for her to earn her place without my name tipping the scales. Not because I doubted her. Camille was sharp, driven, the kind of person who could charm a room and crunch numbers in her sleep. But she'd spent so long looking down on me, I needed to know who she'd be when she stepped into my world, unaware it was mine. Weeks later, I got the update. She'd landed the job. Entry-level finance analyst, $95,000 a year, a shiny new badge with her name on it. I was at the headquarters that day, tucked away in my private office on the top floor, a space nobody but Jake and a few execs knew I used. The building itself was a beast of glass and steel, all sharp angles and open spaces, designed to scream success. I'd had a hand in picking the architect, though nobody would have guessed it. As I worked through a system update, Jake swung by, leaning against the doorframe with a grin. She's downstairs right now, he said, strutting through the lobby like she owns the place. Doesn't know, does she? Nope, I said, not looking up from my screen. Not yet. He laughed, shaking his head. You're playing a dangerous game, man. I just smirked and kept typing. Dangerous? Maybe. But it wasn't about games, it was about truth. Camille thought I was unemployed, maybe dabbling in odd jobs for Jake, when he threw me a bone. She'd built that idea so firmly in her head that she never questioned it, even when I'd come home late from meetings or spend hours locked in my office. Letting her walk into Pulse Logic without knowing my role was just an extension of that, giving her the space to be herself, No filters, no faking it for my sake. I finished my work and decided to take a walk through the building, something I didn't do often. Most employees knew me as Jake's friend, maybe a consultant who popped in now and then. I liked it that way. Kept things clean, let me move without eyes on me. The elevator hummed as it dropped to the main floor, and when the doors opened, I saw her. Camille, standing by the reception desk, her posture all confidence as she accepted her badge from HR. She wore a tailored blazer, her hair pulled back, every inch the professional. I stayed back, blending into the crowd of employees heading to lunch. She didn't see me, didn't even glance my way, too busy soaking in the moment. Watching her, I felt a strange mix of pride and distance. She'd earned this, no question. The hiring team didn't know she was my wife. HR had strict protocols, and I'd made sure her application went through the same grinder as anyone else's. But there was something else, too. A quiet ache I didn't expect. She was stepping into a world I'd built, a place where my initials were literally etched into the tiles beneath her feet, and she had no clue. Part of me wanted to walk over, tell her right then, see the shock in her eyes. But I didn't. Timing matters, and this wasn't it. I headed back upstairs, the elevator's hum a steady backdrop to my thoughts. Later that day, Jake sent me a photo from the onboarding session. Camille at a conference table, smiling with her new team, a Pulse Logic logo on the wall behind her. She's already making friends, he texted. I stared at the image, her face bright with possibility. It reminded me of the early days, when we talk about our dreams over cheap takeout, back before she started measuring me against her idea of success. Back then, I thought we'd build something together, not a company, but a life. Now, here she was, part of my empire, thinking it belonged to someone else. The irony wasn't lost on me. Every paycheck she'd get, every project she'd touch, every door she'd walk through, it all tied back to me. Not in a controlling way, but in the quiet, undeniable way that comes from years of work nobody sees. I'd coded the software that ran the company's core, designed the systems that kept it ahead of competitors. Jake was the voice, sure, but I was the engine. And Camille? She was just another employee now, one of hundreds who didn't know the man behind the curtain. That night, she came home late, her energy electric as she kicked off her heels and dropped her bag on the couch. It's incredible, she said, pouring herself a glass of water. The office, the people, the vibe, it's like I'm finally where I'm supposed to be. She didn't ask about my day, didn't notice I'd been out late, tweaking a server issue. I just listened, nodding as she went on about her new desk, her new boss, how she could feel the innovation in the air. I could have told her I'd picked that desk model, or that the innovation came from my sleepless nights. Instead, I said, sounds like you're happy. She looked at me then, just for a moment, like she was searching for something. Yeah, she said. I am. Then she turned away, already lost in her plans for tomorrow. I watched her go, the distance between us wider than ever. She thought she'd stepped into Jake's world, a place where he was the star and I was nobody. But she was wrong. This was my world, ours, really, but mine in a way she couldn't imagine. And when the day came for her to see it, it wouldn't be because I shouted it from the rooftops. It'd be because the truth was too big to stay hidden forever. For now, I'd keep working, keep waiting, let her think what she wanted. The moment would come. It always did. The hum of my laptop filled the quiet of my home office, a steady rhythm that grounded me as I sifted through a backlog of emails. Outside, the city was settling into dusk, lights flickering on like stars against the skyline. I'd spent the day tweaking a new algorithm for Pulse Logic, the kind of work that felt like solving a puzzle nobody else could see. Most people at the company thought Jake was the mastermind, the guy who dreamed it all up and made it our. They weren't entirely wrong. He had a knack for selling the vision, for turning my code into something the world wanted. But the truth was Messier. Every breakthrough, every system that kept us ahead, came from my hands. And Camille? She was out there in the office, building her own story about who ran the show, with no clue I was the one she was really working for. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my eyes as I thought about her first month at the company. Word had gotten back to me, little snippets from HR, casual comments from Jake. She was settling in fast, charming her team, tossing around buzzwords like she'd been born in a boardroom. Apparently, she'd taken to bragging about her proximity to power, as if being in the same building as Jake made her special. I could picture her in the break room, coffee in hand, tossing her hair as she said, "He's so inspiring. You can just tell he's the genius behind it all." It didn't bother me, not really. I'd chosen to stay out of the spotlight, let Jake take the bows. But hearing her say it, knowing she thought I was just some guy hanging around for scraps, stirred something I couldn't quite name. That afternoon, I'd gotten an email from one of the HR reps, someone I trusted to keep me in the loop without asking too many questions. She'd overheard Camille in the break room, laughing with a couple of analysts. "There's this other founder, right?" she'd said, her voice carrying that sharp edge she used when she was trying to sound clever. "Some ghost, probably just a legal placeholder. Jake runs everything, you can tell." The HR rep had typed it up word for word, adding a quick note. "Thought you'd want to know." I read it twice, my jaw tight, then closed the email without replying. A placeholder. That's what she thought I was. Not a man who'd built an empire from a folding table in a loft, but a name on paper, irrelevant next to Jake's shine. My phone pinged, pulling me out of my thoughts. It was Jake, texting as if he'd read my mind. "Heard Camille spreading her theories about you. Want me to set her straight?" I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. For a moment, I imagined him walking up to her desk, casual as ever, and dropping the truth like a stone in still water. I could almost see her face, shock, then disbelief, then that quick scramble to rewrite the story in her head. It was tempting, but I typed back, "Not yet." I set the phone down and stood, stretching my arms as I walked to the window. The city sprawled below, a map of lives and secrets, and I wondered how many others out there were misjudged, unseen for what they really were. Camille's words didn't hurt as much as they might have once. They were just noise, part of the bigger picture I'd been watching unfold. She could think what she wanted, say what she wanted. The company didn't run on her opinions, it ran on my work. Every email she sent, every report she filed, every paycheck she cashed, it all flowed through systems I'd designed. She was a guest in my house, even if she didn't know it. Later that night, I drove to the office to check on a server issue nobody else could crack. The building was quiet after hours, just the hum of air conditioning and the faint glow of monitors left on by accident. I liked it this way, no crowds, no meetings, just me and the tech. As I worked in the server room, untangling a mess of cables and running diagnostics, I thought about the early days with Jake. We'd been kids, really, fueled by cheap pizza and big ideas. Back then, it wasn't about money or fame, it was about building something that mattered. I'd never cared about the spotlight, even when we started getting press, when investors came knocking. Jake thrived on it, and I was happy to let him. But now, with Camille spinning her stories, I wondered if I'd stayed quiet too long. The server beeped, signaling the fix was complete, and I leaned back against the wall, wiping sweat from my forehead. My phone buzzed again, this time an email from Jake, forwarded from one of his assistants. It was a screenshot of an internal memo Camille had drafted, something about streamlining budget reports. It was good work, sharp and efficient, the kind of thing that'd get her noticed. I read it through, nodding to myself. She was talented, no question. That's why I hadn't blocked her application, why I'd let her walk through those doors. But talent didn't mean she saw the whole picture. I locked up and headed home, the city lights blurring past as I drove. Camille was already asleep when I got there, her shoes by the door, her bag slung over a chair. I stood in the kitchen, pouring a glass of water, and thought about the memo again. She was making her mark, carving out a place for herself, and I was glad for it. But every step she took was on ground I'd laid. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was climbing a ladder I'd built, praising a man who leaned on me for every major call. Jake still ran decisions by me, even the ones she thought were his alone. Budgets, contracts, tech rollouts, he'd call or text, asking for my take, and I'd give it. No ego, no fuss. That's how we worked. As I climbed the stairs to bed, I paused outside our room, listening to the faint sound of her breathing. She was happy here, in this life she thought she'd earned by outgrowing me. And maybe she had, in her own way. But the truth was bigger than her version of it. I didn't need her to know, not yet. Telling her now would be too easy, like flipping a switch and watching her scramble. I wanted her to find it herself, to feel the weight of it when it landed. Not out of spite, but because real understanding doesn't come from words, it comes from seeing. I slipped into bed, the mattress dipping under my weight. Tomorrow, I'd dive back into work, another bug to fix, another system to tweak. Camille would go to her desk, file her reports, maybe drop another line about Jake's brilliance. And I'd keep doing what I'd always done, building, waiting, letting the pieces fall where they would. The office gossip didn't matter, not really. Her theories, her break room chatter, it was all just noise. The company ran because of me, and sooner or later, she'd see it. Not because I'd shout it, but because the truth has a way of breaking through, quiet and sure, like a sunrise you can't ignore. For now, I'd stay the ghost she didn't believe in, and that was enough. The office was a ghost town that night, the usual buzz of keyboards and chatter replaced by the low hum of air conditioning and the occasional creak of a settling building. I was holed up in the executive suite, a corner room with a view of the city's jagged skyline, working late on a software patch that had been giving the dev team fits. The glow of my laptop screen lit up the desk, casting shadows across stacks of papers and a cold coffee mug I'd forgotten to refill. This was my element: code, quiet, control. No meetings, no handshakes, just me untangling problems nobody else could. I liked these hours, when the world slowed down and I could think without interruption. But then I heard it, the sharp click of heels on the hardwood floor, echoing down the hall like gunfire in the silence. I glanced at the clock, past 9. Nobody should have been here, not even the cleaning crew. The sound stopped just outside the door, and before I could close my laptop, Camille walked in. She froze in the doorway, her eyes wide, like she'd stumbled into a room she wasn't supposed to see. Her blazer was slung over one arm, her hair slightly messy from a long day, but she still carried that air of confidence, like she owned every space she entered. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice sharp, almost accusing. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my expression neutral. "Helping Jake," I said, the same vague answer I always gave. It was true enough. Jake had asked me to handle this patch personally, but it was also the kind of answer that let her fill in the blanks however she wanted. She rolled her eyes, stepping into the room, her heels clicking again. "Of course," she said, her tone dripping with that familiar mix of pity and frustration. "You just can't let go of his coattails, huh?" The word stung, though I didn't let it show. I'd heard them before, variations of the same jab, always aimed at making me feel small. But tonight, in this room, with my code on the screen and the weight of everything I'd built behind me, they landed differently. I could have corrected her right then, laid it all out, how this company, this office, this very moment existed because of me. But I didn't. Instead, I just held her gaze, my face calm, giving her nothing to grip onto. She shifted her weight, clearly expecting me to argue or shrink away like I usually did. When I didn't, her confidence wavered, just for a second. "It's late, Mason," she said, softer now, like she was trying to figure out why I wasn't rattled. "Why are you even in here? This is the executive suite." Before I could answer, Jake walked in, his tie loosened and a tablet under his arm. He stopped short, glancing between us, his easy smile faltering for a moment. "Hey," he said, nodding at Camille before turning to me. "Ready to sign off, Mace?" The air shifted. Camille's eyes narrowed, her head tilting slightly as she processed his words. "Wait," she said, her voice slow, like she was piecing together a puzzle. "He signs things off?" Jake froze, realizing his slip. He looked at me, waiting for a signal, but I didn't give one. Instead, I closed my laptop with a soft click and stood, stretching my arms. "Just wrapping up some tech stuff," I said, keeping it light, like it was no big deal. Camille wasn't buying it. She crossed her arms, her gaze flicking between me and Jake. "Hold on," she said. "What do you mean, sign off? Since when are you involved like that?" Jake, bless him, tried to smooth it over. "He's involved," he said, his smile awkward but genuine. "You know, helps with the big picture stuff sometimes." She laughed, but it was nervous, unsteady, like she was trying to convince herself it wasn't a big deal. "Sure he is," she said, her eyes locked on me now, searching for something, an explanation, a crack in my calm. I didn't give her one. I just grabbed my jacket from the back of the chair and slung it over my shoulder. "Long day," I said, nodding at Jake. "I'll finish up tomorrow." As I brushed past her, I caught the faintest whiff of her perfume, the same one she'd worn since we met. For a split second, I remembered the early days, her laughing over cheap wine, me promising her the world. But that memory faded as fast as it came. I didn't look back. Didn't need to. I could feel her staring as I walked out, the weight of her confusion following me down the hall. In the elevator, I leaned against the wall, the hum of descent matching the buzz in my head. That was closer than I'd planned. Jake's slip hadn't been intentional, but it was a reminder. The truth was a restless thing, always looking for a way out. I'd wanted to control the timing, let her stumble across it naturally, but moments like this made me wonder if I was pushing my luck. Still, I wasn't ready to lay it all bare. Not yet. She'd have questions now, sure, but questions weren't answers. She'd probably brush it off, tell herself Jake was just being polite, that I was still the guy she'd pegged as a nobody. When I got home, the house was dark, quiet except for the faint drip of the kitchen faucet I kept meaning to fix. I poured a glass of water and stood by the counter, replaying the scene in my head. Her face when Jake said my name, the way her certainty cracked just enough to let doubt creep in. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I didn't want her to feel stupid. That was never the goal. I just wanted her to see me, really see me, without the story she'd written in her head. I thought about calling Jake, telling him to be more careful, but I didn't. He'd feel bad enough already, probably pacing his apartment right now, wondering if he'd messed up my plan. He hadn't. If anything, he'd nudged it forward, given her something to chew on. I set the glass down and headed upstairs, the stairs creaking under my weight. Tomorrow, she'd go back to her desk, maybe ask around, dig a little. Or maybe she'd let it go, too proud to admit she might have missed something. Either way, the seed was planted. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I wondered what she'd say if she knew the whole story. Not just that I was involved, but that I was the backbone, the guy who'd turned a crazy idea into a $120 million reality. Would she laugh it off? Get angry? Or would it finally make her pause, look at me like she used to, back when we were equals in her eyes? I didn't know. What I did know was that I wasn't here to beg for her respect. I'd earned it years ago, long before she started measuring me against her version of success. The clock ticked past midnight, and I closed my eyes, the memory of her heels still echoing in my mind. She could roll her eyes all she wanted, call me whatever names made her feel tall. I didn't need her to cheer me on. What I needed, what I'd always needed, was to build something real, something that lasted. And I had. Now it was just a matter of time before she saw it, before the truth stepped out of the shadows and stood in front of her, plain as day. For now, I'd keep doing what I did best. Work, wait, and let the pieces fall where they would. The morning started like any other, coffee brewing in the kitchen, the faint hum of traffic filtering through the windows, and me at my desk, staring at a screen full of code that needed my attention. The routine was comforting, a tether to the life I'd built, even as things with Camille felt like they were teetering on the edge of something big. I hadn't seen her much since that night in the executive suite, when Jake's slip about me signing off had left her with questions she didn't know how to ask. She'd been quieter at home, her usual jabs replaced by quick glances and half-started sentences, like she was trying to solve a puzzle but didn't want to admit it. I let her stew, didn't push, didn't offer explanations. The truth was coming, and when it did, it wouldn't be because I'd spoon-fed it to her. 2 weeks later, it happened. I was in my office at Pulse Logic, tucked away in the corner of the top floor where nobody bothered me, when Jake texted, "Payroll glitch today. HR scrambling. Camille's asking questions." I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking under my weight, and smirked. Payroll glitches were rare. My systems were tight, but when they happened, they left a trail. I knew where this was going. Sure enough, an hour later, another text from Jake. "She saw your name on her stub. Freaked out. You want me to handle it?" I typed back a quick no. Let it play out. I could picture it, Camille at her desk, probably sipping one of those overpriced lattes she loved, opening her paycheck to check the deposit. Most people just glance at the numbers, but not her. She'd scrutinize every detail, always looking for a way to optimize. And there, at the bottom of the stub, in clean black ink, authorized by Mason Quinn. I could imagine her squinting at it, thinking it was a typo, a glitch, maybe even a joke. She'd probably laughed at first, that sharp, dismissive laugh she used when something didn't fit her worldview. But Camille wasn't one to let things slide. She'd dig, and that's exactly what she did. By noon, I got an email from HR, flagged as urgent. The rep, a no-nonsense woman named Karen who'd been with us since the early days, laid it out plain. Camille had stormed into their office, paycheck in hand, demanding to know why my name was on it. She thought it was a mistake, Karen wrote. Asked if we'd mixed up names or if there was another Mason Quinn. I pulled the internal docs to show her it was legit. She went pale, Mason, like she'd seen a ghost. I read the email twice, my pulse steady but my mind racing. This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for, though I hadn't planned it this way. Karen had done her job, nothing more, nothing less. She'd shown Camille the paperwork, the founding charter, the corporate ownership forms, the stock disbursement records. All of them with my name in bold, Mason Quinn, co-founder and chief technology officer. Not a placeholder, not a shadow, but the guy who'd built the engine that powered the whole damn company. Karen didn't say much about what happened next, just that Camille had sat down hard, staring at the documents like they were written in a language she didn't speak. She didn't faint, Karen added, but she looked close. I closed the email and stood, walking to the window. The city stretched out below, all glass and steel and restless energy, a world I'd helped shape in ways most people would never see. I didn't feel triumphant, not exactly. There was no rush of victory, no urge to gloat. If anything, I felt a strange kind of calm, like the air after a storm. Camille knew now. Not the whole story, maybe, but enough to crack the shell she'd built around me. She'd spent years thinking I was less driven, less capable, less worthy of her. And now she'd seen my name on the one thing she couldn't argue with, her paycheck. I wondered what she was doing at that moment. Was she still in HR, flipping through those documents, looking for a loophole? Or had she gone back to her desk, staring at her computer, trying to reconcile the man she'd mocked with the one who'd signed her salary? I could have called her, could have walked down to her floor and seen her face for myself. But I didn't. This wasn't about me chasing her reaction. It was about her sitting with the truth, letting it sink in. Jake called later that day, his voice a mix of amusement and concern. "Man, she's rattled," he said. "Saw her in the hall, and she barely nodded at me. You sure you don't want to talk to her? Clear the air." "Nah," I said, leaning against my desk. "She's got enough to chew on." He laughed, but it was cautious. "You're cold, Maze. I'd be freaking out if my wife found out like this." "She'll be fine," I said. "She's tougher than she looks." And she was. Camille didn't break easy. She'd clawed her way through a competitive field, earned her spot at Pulse Logic fair and square. This wouldn't destroy her. It'd just force her to rethink things, to see me without the filter she'd put up years ago. I hung up and went back to work, diving into a server log that needed attention. The code was clean, logical, a world where everything made sense if you knew how to look. I wished people were that simple, but they weren't, not even Camille. That night, I got home before she did. The house was quiet, just the hum of the fridge and the faint tick of a clock in the living room. I poured a glass of water and stood by the counter, waiting. I didn't know if she'd bring it up, if she'd walk in ready to fight or just pretend nothing had happened. When I heard her key in the lock, my stomach tightened, but I kept my face calm. She stepped inside, her heels clicking softer than usual, like she was carrying a weight she didn't want to show. She set her bag down, glanced at me, and nodded quick, almost formal. "Good day," I asked, keeping my tone light. She hesitated, her lips parting like she wanted to say something, then closed again. "Busy," she said finally, heading for the stairs. "I'm beat." I watched her go, the moment slipping away without a word about the paycheck, the documents, any of it. Part of me wanted to call her back, to lay it all out and see what she'd say. But I didn't. She needed time, and I wasn't here to rush her. The truth was out now, raw and undeniable, and it'd do its work without me pushing. I took a sip of water, the glass cool against my palm, and let the silence settle. As I headed to my office to finish some work, I thought about those early days, me and Jake in that loft, dreaming bigger than we had any right to. Back then, it wasn't about proving anything to anyone, not even ourselves. It was just about building something real. I'd done that, despite what Camille thought, despite what anyone thought. And now she knew, not because I'd shouted it, but because the truth had found her, quiet and sharp, like a blade she didn't see coming. For now, I'd keep working, keep waiting. The next move was hers, and I was ready for whatever came. The gala was in full swing when I arrived, the kind of event that made you feel like you'd stepped into a movie, chandeliers glittering overhead, waiters gliding through the crowd with trays of champagne, and a live jazz band filling the air with smooth, easy notes. Pulse Logic had pulled out all the stops to celebrate a new government contract, a deal that'd keep us in the black for years. I usually skip these things, happy to let Jake soak up the spotlight while I stayed behind my screens. But tonight, he'd insisted I show up, his voice firm over the phone. "You need to claim what you've built," he'd said. "No room for argument. This isn't just my win, it's yours." I'd grumbled, tugged at the collar of my tux, but deep down, I knew he was right. So here I was, standing at the edge of a ballroom packed with suits and gowns, feeling like a fish out of water, but ready to play my part. The room buzzed with energy, executives mingling, investors laughing too loud, employees snapping selfies with the company logo projected on a massive screen. I adjusted my tie, the sleek black suit Jake had practically forced me to wear feeling foreign but sharp. I caught my reflection in a mirrored pillar, taller than I remembered, my jaw set. I steady. For once, I didn't look like the guy Camille thought I was, the one she dismissed as a shadow. Tonight, I'd step into the light, not for her, not even for Jake, but for myself. I spotted her across the room, working the logistics team, clipboard in hand, her dress catching the light as she moved. Camille always had a knack for looking like she belonged, no matter the crowd. She was directing a staffer toward the dessert table, her smile professional but warm, the kind that made people trust her instantly. She hadn't seen me yet, hadn't noticed me slipping through the crowd, shaking hands with a few board members who knew my name even if most employees didn't. I kept my distance, letting her do her thing. After the payroll incident 2 weeks ago, we'd barely talked, her coming home late, me leaving early, both of us dodging the truth that had landed like a stone between us. She knew now, or at least she knew enough to question everything, but she hadn't brought it up, and I hadn't pushed. Jake found me near the bar, his grin wide as he clapped a hand on my shoulder. "You clean up nice," he said, handing me a glass of whiskey I didn't ask for. "Ready for this?" I took a sip, the burn grounding me. "As I'll ever be," I said, glancing at the stage where the MC was testing the mic. He followed my gaze, then leaned in, voice low. "She's gonna lose it when she hears your name. You sure you're good with that?" I nodded, my eyes drifting back to Camille. She was laughing now, nodding at something an older exec said, her clipboard tucked under her arm. "Let her react however she wants," I said. "This isn't about her." Jake raised an eyebrow but didn't push. He knew me well enough to know when I'd made up my mind. The band wrapped up their set, and the MC stepped to the podium, his voice booming through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate a milestone for Pulse Logic." The crowd clapped, a few cheers breaking through. I set my glass down, my pulse steady but quick, like it was before a big code drop. The MC ran through the usual spiel, thanking the team, hyping the contract, tossing out stats that made investors nod. Then he paused, his smile widening. None of this would be possible without the vision and grit of our founders. Please welcome our co-founder and chief technology officer, Mason Quinn. Spotlight swung toward me, bright and unyielding, pinning me in place. The room erupted, claps, gasps, a few murmurs rippling through the crowd. I felt every eye on me as I made my way to the stage, my steps deliberate, my face calm. Cameras clicked, flashes popping like tiny explosions. I didn't look at Camille, didn't need to. I could feel her stare, sharp and heavy, from wherever she stood. I reached the podium, shaking the MC's hand before turning to the crowd. They were a sea of faces, some familiar, most not, all waiting for me to say something that matched the moment. I'd never been one for speeches, Jake was the talker, but I'd prepared for this. "Thank you," I started, my voice steady, carrying over the room. "This company started with a simple idea, solve problems nobody else can. That's what we've done, and that's what we'll keep doing. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it." I kept it short, thanking the team, nodding to Jake, who stood near the stage, grinning like a proud brother. The crowd clapped again, louder this time, and I stepped back, letting Jake take over for the rest. As I moved off stage, I caught it, Camille, standing near a pillar, her champagne flute trembling in her hand. Her face was pale, lips parted, like she'd just seen something impossible. Our eyes met for a split second, and I saw it all. Shock, realization, maybe even regret. Then she looked away, her grip tightening on the glass, and I kept walking. Back at the bar, I grabbed a water, the adrenaline still humming in my veins. Jake joined me, leaning against the counter. "Told you it'd hit hard," he said, his voice low but teasing. "Yeah," I said, taking a sip. "You weren't wrong." He glanced toward Camille, who was now talking to a colleague, her smile forced. "She's rattled, man. What's your next move?" "Nothing," I said, setting the glass down. "Ball's in her court now." The rest of the night blurred. Handshakes, small talk, people I barely knew telling me how inspiring it was to hear from the other founder. I nodded, smiled, played the part, but my mind kept drifting back to her. Not because I needed her to say anything, but because I wondered what she was thinking now, after seeing me up there, my name on everyone's lips. Did it change how she saw me? Or was she already rewriting it in her head, finding a way to make it fit her old story? As the gala wound down, I stepped outside for air, the cool night biting at my skin through the suit. The city sparkled below, a reminder of everything I'd built, everything I still had to do. I didn't need the applause, didn't need the cameras. But standing there, With my name finally out in the open, I felt something shift. Not pride, not relief, just clarity. I wasn't hiding anymore, not from her, not from anyone. I heard the door open behind me, footsteps soft but deliberate. I didn't turn around, didn't need to. It was her, I knew it. But I wasn't ready for that talk, not yet. Let her come to me when she was ready, when the truth had settled deep enough to matter. For now, I'd done what I came to do. The stage was set, the curtain up. Whatever came next, I'd face it the same way I always had, steady, quiet, and sure of what I'd built. The days after the gala felt different, like the air in the house carried a charge I couldn't ignore. I went through my routine, coffee at dawn, code reviews in my office, calls with Jake about the next phase of the government contract. But there was a quiet tension under it all, a sense that something had cracked open and wouldn't close again. Camille hadn't said much since that night, since the moment she'd seen me on that stage, my name echoing through the ballroom like a truth she couldn't dodge. I'd caught her staring a few times, quick, searching glances when she thought I wasn't looking, but she hadn't brought it up, and I wasn't about to force the issue. I'd spent years letting her build her own story about me. Now that it was unraveling, I wanted to see what she'd do with the pieces. It was late one evening, maybe a week later, when she finally broke the silence. I was in the kitchen, rinsing dishes from a dinner we'd eaten separately. Her working late, me buried in a server issue. The house was quiet, just the faint hum of the fridge and the clink of plates in the sink. She walked in, still in her work clothes, her heels left by the door like she'd shed some of her armor. I didn't turn around, kept scrubbing a pan, waiting to see if she'd speak or just grab a glass of water and vanish upstairs like usual. Then I heard her voice, low but sharp, like she'd been holding it in too long. "You should have told me." I set the pan down, drying my hands on a towel before facing her. She stood by the counter, arms crossed, her eyes fixed on me, not angry, exactly, but hard, like she was trying to pin me in place. "Told you what?" I asked, keeping my tone even, though I knew exactly what she meant. "Don't play dumb," she said, her voice rising just a fraction. "About Pulse Logic. About you being, whatever you are. Co-founder, CTO, the guy who built it all. Do you know how stupid I looked? Standing there at the gala, holding my champagne like an idiot while everyone clapped for you." I leaned against the counter, holding her gaze. Her words stung, but not like they used to. There was something raw in them, something honest, and I wanted to hear it all before I answered. "It wasn't about making you look stupid," I said finally, my voice calm but firm. "You did that all on your own." Her eyes widened, a flash of hurt crossing her face before it hardened again. "So this was what? A game?" she snapped. "Letting me think you were nobody, letting me say those things about you. About Jake? Also you could what? Prove a point." I shook my head, stepping closer, not to crowd her, but to make sure she heard me. "It wasn't a game. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to love me for a title or a paycheck. I wanted to see who you'd be when you thought I had nothing." She laughed, but it was bitter, almost choked. "And what did you see, Mason? A shallow, status-obsessed bitch who'd rather chase Jake's shadow than look at you." Her words hung there, heavy, and for a moment, I didn't know what to say. She wasn't wrong, not entirely. She'd spent years measuring me against her idea of success, cutting me down to fit the box she'd made. But I didn't hate her for it. I just wanted her to see it, to own it. "I saw someone who's smart," I said quietly. "Someone who's driven, who earned her place at that company. But yeah, I also saw someone who decided I wasn't enough before she even asked who I was." She flinched, her arms dropping to her sides. For a second, I thought she might cry, but Camille didn't break like that. Instead, she straightened, her voice trembling but sharp. "You could have asked me to stop. You could have said something, anything, instead of sitting there, smiling like it didn't hurt. Why didn't you?" I looked at her, really looked, and saw the woman I'd fallen for years ago, fierce, stubborn, always pushing. But I also saw the distance between us, wider now than ever. "Because I didn't want to fight for your respect," I said. "I wanted you to give it. Not because I'm the CTO, but because I'm your husband." She opened her mouth, then closed it, her eyes glistening but holding back. The silence stretched, thick and heavy, until she turned away, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't know how to see you. Not like this." She walked out, her footsteps soft on the hardwood, leaving me alone with the dishes and the weight of what we just said. I didn't follow her. Didn't need to. She'd wanted to justify herself, to make it my fault for keeping secrets. But I'd given her the truth, plain and unvarnished. I wasn't here to punish her, but I wasn't here to beg for forgiveness either. The next few days were quiet, both of us moving through the house like strangers sharing a lease. I threw myself into work, debugging code, prepping for a tech rollout, anything to keep my mind off the ache in my chest. Jake called once, asking how things were, but I brushed him off. "She's processing," I said, and he didn't push. At Pulse Logic, I heard she was keeping her head down, still doing her job but without the usual swagger. Part of me wondered if she'd quit, walk away from the company now that she knew my role, but she didn't. She showed up, filed her reports, kept going. That was something, at least. I thought about that night a lot, her anger, her tears, the way she tried to turn it back on me. It wasn't about her looking stupid at the gala. It was about her realizing she'd misjudged me, not just as a founder but as a man. I didn't need her to grovel, didn't want her to. I just wanted her to see what I'd seen all along, that we could have been partners, equals, if she'd let me in instead of pushing me down. One morning, I found her coffee mug on the counter, still warm, a post-it stuck to it with a single word: "Sorry." I stared at it, my thumb tracing the edge of the paper. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I didn't know where we'd go from here, maybe nowhere, maybe somewhere new. But I knew one thing. I didn't need her applause to feel whole. I'd built Pulse Logic from nothing, turned a dream into a reality that paid her salary, and that was enough. I tucked the note in my pocket and headed to my office, the city waking up outside. She'd vented, cried, blamed me, and I'd let her. But now the truth was out, and it wasn't my job to fix how it made her feel. She'd have to figure that out herself. For now, I had work to do, systems to maintain, problems to solve, a company to run from the shadows. And if she wanted to talk, really talk, I'd be here. Not as the guy she mocked, not as the founder she didn't expect, but as me, steady, quiet, and done waiting for her to catch up. The house was quieter than usual that week, the kind of quiet that feels like it's holding its breath. I'd found Camille's note, "Sorry," on a post-it, left like a breadcrumb on her coffee mug, and it stayed with me, tucked in my pocket as I went through my days. I didn't bring it up, didn't ask her what it meant. Words like that need space to settle, and I wasn't in a rush to fill the silence. Work kept me busy, Pulse Logic was ramping up for a new software release, and I was neck-deep in code, tweaking algorithms and squashing bugs that only I could spot. But even as I worked, my mind kept drifting back to her, to the way things had shifted since the gala, since she'd seen my name on that stage and realized the man she dismissed was the one holding up her world. I'd heard bits and pieces about her at the office, not from her directly, but from Jake and a few others who kept an eye out. She was still showing up, still doing her job, but the swagger was gone. No more breakroom boasts about proximity to power, no more gushing about Jake's genius. Instead, she was quieter, focused, like she was trying to prove something to herself. Karen in HR mentioned she'd started asking about the company's outreach programs, the ones I'd pushed for years ago, tech workshops for women in underprivileged schools, stuff I'd always cared about but never advertised. It caught me off guard, hearing that. Was she digging into my world, trying to understand me? Or was it just her way of coping, finding something to hold on to after her version of me had crumbled? I didn't know, and I didn't ask. One morning, I decided to do something I hadn't planned. I was at my desk, the city humming outside my window, when I pulled out a small box I'd picked up on a whim, a high-end leather-bound notebook, the kind Camille used to jot down her ideas back when we'd dreamed together over late-night takeout. I grabbed a pen and wrote a note, keeping it simple. "Camille, you're talented. You earned your place here. This isn't about revenge. It's about letting truth speak. Mason." I didn't overthink it, didn't try to make it poetic. It was just the truth, plain and clear, the way I'd always tried to be with her, even when she didn't see it. I drove to the office that afternoon, the box on the passenger seat. The building was buzzing as usual, phones ringing, keyboards clacking, employees weaving through the open-plan floor. I didn't go to my usual hideout on the top floor. Instead, I headed to Camille's desk, tucked in a corner of the finance department. She wasn't there, probably in a meeting. So I set the box down, the note folded inside, and walked away before anyone could ask what I was doing. It felt strange, leaving something for her like that, no explanation, no ceremony. But it wasn't about grand gestures. It was about giving her something real, something she could hold, and letting her decide what to do with it. I didn't hear from her about it, not that day, not the next. Part of me wondered if she'd tossed it, too proud to accept anything from me after everything. But I didn't dwell on it. I'd said what I needed to say, and the rest was up to her. Life kept moving, meetings with the dev team, late-night calls with Jake about scaling the new contract, the usual grind that kept PulseLogic running. I liked the rhythm of it, the way it pulled me into a world where things made sense, where effort led to results. If only people were that straightforward. A few days later, Jake swung by my office, leaning against the doorframe with that grin he got when he knew something I didn't. "She's been asking about the charity stuff," he said, crossing his arms. "The tech programs for schools. Wanted to know how we pick the locations, who funds it." Sound familiar? I looked up from my screen, my hands pausing on the keyboard. "Yeah," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Sounds like something I'd care about." He laughed, shaking his head. "Man, she's digging. Not saying it's because of you, but come on. That's your thing. She's never touched it before." I shrugged, turning back to my work. Maybe she's just curious. Jake didn't buy it, but he let it go, heading out with a promise to grab beers later. I sat there, staring at the code on my screen, but my mind was elsewhere. Camille, asking about the programs I'd poured my heart into, quietly, behind the scenes, the way I'd always done things. It wasn't an apology, wasn't a big declaration, but it was something. A step, maybe, towards seeing me as more than the guy she'd mocked at her parents' party. I didn't know if it'd lead anywhere, but it was enough to make me pause, to wonder if she was changing, slowly, the way I had years ago when I realized I didn't need applause to feel whole. That night, I got home late, the house dark except for a light in the kitchen. Camille was at the table, her laptop open, papers spread out around her. She didn't look up as I walked in, but I saw it, the leather notebook, open to a page filled with her neat handwriting. My note wasn't there, probably tucked away somewhere, but the sight of the book hit me harder than I expected. I grabbed a glass of water, keeping my movements quiet, not wanting to disturb whatever she was working on. As I headed upstairs, I caught a glimpse of her screen, a proposal draft, something about expanding the tech workshops to more schools. I didn't stop, didn't say anything, just kept going. In bed, I lay awake, the ceiling a blank canvas for my thoughts. I didn't need her to thank me, didn't need her to say she'd read the note or liked the gift. What I needed, what I'd always needed, was to know I'd built something that mattered, not just in code or contracts, but in the way it touched people's lives. Those programs, the ones she was now poking into, were part of that. If she was picking up that thread, even just a little, it meant something. Not a victory, not a reconciliation, but a shift, quiet and real, like the first crack of dawn after a long night. I thought about the early days, when I'd stay up coding while Camille slept, dreaming of a future we'd share. That future looked different now, fractured by her words and my silence, but it wasn't gone. Maybe we'd find a way to meet in the middle, or maybe we'd just learn to see each other clearly. Either way, I wasn't here to force it. I'd given her the truth on that paycheck, on that stage, in that note, and now it was hers to carry. For me, there was still work to do, systems to build, problems to solve. I'd keep going, steady as ever, letting the pieces fall where they would. And if she wanted to walk beside me, she knew where to find me, not as the founder, not as the ghost, but as the man I'd always been, waiting for her to catch up. The brunch was at Elaine's favorite restaurant, a fancy place with white tablecloths and waiters who moved like they'd been trained to disappear. I sat across from Camille, the hum of her family's chatter filling the air, her cousins swapping gossip, her father droning on about golf, Uncle Darius asking for more coffee louder than necessary. It was the kind of gathering that used to make my skin itch, all polished surfaces and veiled jabs, but today I felt steady, grounded in a way I hadn't in years. Camille was quieter than usual, her fork moving slowly through her eggs, her eyes drifting to the window now, and then like she was somewhere else. I didn't push her to talk, didn't need to. The past few weeks had been heavy, her finding my note, her digging into the company's charity programs, the unspoken shift between us, and I was content to let things breathe. The table conversation turned to work, as it always did with her family. Elaine leaned forward, her pearls catching the light, and asked Camille about her job at PulseLogic. "It's such a prestigious company," she said, her voice dripping with pride. "You must feel so lucky to be part of Jake Lawrence's vision." I took a sip of my coffee, hiding a smirk. Jake's vision. That's what they all thought, what Camille had thought too, until the truth came crashing in. She didn't answer right away, just nodded, her lips tight. And I wondered what was going through her head, whether she was replaying the gala, my name on her paycheck, or the notebook I'd left on her desk. Then her aunt, a woman with a laugh like a foghorn, turned to me, her fork waving in my direction. "So, Mason," she said, loud enough to pull every eye to me, "still trying to make something of yourself? Or are you just riding Jake's coattails forever?" The table went quiet, a few awkward chuckles breaking the silence. It was the same old dig, the kind I'd heard 100 times at these gatherings, but it hit differently now. I opened my mouth to answer, something vague, like always. But Camille spoke first, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. "He's already made something," she said, her tone steady, not loud but firm enough to stop the room. "Everything, actually." I froze, my coffee halfway to my lips. Every head turned to her, then to me, the weight of her words sinking in. Elaine's eyebrows shot up, Darius coughed into his napkin, and her aunt just stared, like she'd misheard. I looked at Camille, our eyes meeting across the table, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't see anger or defensiveness, just truth, raw and unguarded. She didn't smile, didn't soften it, just held my gaze like she was daring anyone to challenge her. Nobody did. The moment passed, conversation picking up again, but it lingered between us, heavy and real, like a door we'd both stepped through without meaning to. I set my cup down, my pulse steady but my mind racing. She'd never done that before, stood up for me. Not like this. Not in front of her family, where image was everything. I didn't know what it meant, not exactly, but it felt like something had settled, like the ground beneath us had finally stopped shifting. The rest of the brunch blurred, small talk, clinking glasses, Elaine steering the chat back to safer topics. I played along, nodding when I needed to, but my focus stayed on Camille. She didn't say much after that, just ate her food and answered questions with short, polite replies. When we left, she walked beside me to the car, our steps in sync, the silence between us not heavy but thoughtful, like we were both carrying the same weight. In the car, I waited for her to say something, to explain or backtrack, but she just looked out the window, her fingers tracing the edge of her purse. I didn't push. I'd spent years waiting for her to see me, and now that she had, at least enough to speak up, I wasn't going to demand more. I drove us home, the city slipping past, and thought about how far we'd come from that night at her parents' mansion, when she'd mocked me in front of everyone, her words sharp enough to draw blood. Back then, I'd smiled and waited, knowing the truth would find her. Now it had, and I wasn't sure what came next. At home, she went to the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of water while I hung my jacket by the door. I could have asked her about it, could have said, "Why'd you do that?" Or "What's changed?" But I didn't. Instead, I grabbed my laptop and headed to my office, diving back into work, emails from the dev team, a bug report I'd been meaning to tackle. Routine was my anchor, always had been, and I needed it now to keep from overthinking. Camille didn't follow, didn't call me back for some big talk. She just moved through the house, her presence quiet but steady, like a shadow that didn't weigh me down anymore. Later that night, I found her in the living room, curled up on the couch with that leather notebook I'd given her, scribbling something I didn't try to see. I paused in the doorway, watching her for a moment. She looked different, not softer, exactly, but less guarded, like she'd let go of something she'd been carrying too long. I didn't say anything, just grabbed a book and sat across from her, the silence comfortable for once. No anger, no accusations, just us, sharing space without needing to fill it with words. I thought about the road we'd traveled, her jabs, my silence, the slow unraveling of her assumptions. I'd built pulse logic from nothing, turned a dream into a reality that paid her salary, and I'd done it without needing her applause. But today, when she'd spoken up, it wasn't applause either. It was respect, quiet and unforced, the kind I'd stopped hoping for. It didn't fix everything, didn't erase the years of distance or the hurt we'd traded. But it was enough to make me see her differently, to wonder if we could find a new way forward, not as husband and wife, maybe, but as two people who finally understood each other. As I turned a page in my book, I realized I was okay with that. We'd likely go our separate ways. Too much had broken to pretend otherwise, but the idea didn't scare me. I'd build a life that stood on its own, with or without her, and I'd keep building, keep solving problems, keep chasing what mattered. She'd do the same, I figured, carving her own path with that fire I'd always admired, even when it burned me. The clock ticked on, the room soft with lamplight. No music swelled, no grand gestures marked the moment. Just us, sitting there, seeing each other clearly for the first time in years. It wasn't a happy ending, not the kind people write stories about, but it was real, and for me, That was enough. I closed my book, set it aside, and let the quiet hold us both. Knowing whatever came next, I'd face it the way I always had, steady, sure, and ready for the truth to lead the way. I wake up every morning at 5 a.m. The air's still cool and heavy with that quiet promise of a new day. My name's Cole Mercer, and I'm 34 years old, a guy who's spent years perfecting the art of being invisible. I slip out of bed, careful not to wake Bianca, my wife, who's sprawled across the sheets like she owns the world, which, in a way, she does. Her family, the Sinclairs, are old money, Charleston royalty, and I'm the nobody they let into the castle. Downstairs, I pull on my jeans and a plain t-shirt, grab my keys, and head to my coffee shop, Bean and Ground. It's a small place, all exposed brick and warm lights, tucked on a corner of downtown where the tourists wander and the locals linger. People think it's my whole life, this little shop with its humming espresso machine and chalkboard specials. They see me behind the counter, apron tied around my waist, steaming milk or wiping down tables, and they figure that's all I am, a barista with a decent smile and a steady hand. Bianca's father, Gregory Sinclair, calls me the coffee boy when he's feeling generous, which isn't often. His voice is all gravel and judgment, like he's spitting out a bad taste every time he says my name. He's a real estate king, a man who builds towers and buys loyalty with a flick of his wrist, and to him, I'm just the guy his daughter dragged home one day, a stray she decided to keep. I don't mind it, not really. I've been playing this part for years now, quiet, simple, unassuming. It's easier that way. They don't ask questions, don't dig past the surface. Gregory's never wondered why I don't complain about the bills or how I keep the shop running without begging for his handouts. Bianca's never noticed the late-night calls I take in the office upstairs or the way I slip out for errands that stretch into hours. They see what they want, a guy who's good with his hands, who knows his place, who doesn't rock their perfect little boat. And I let them. I pour their lattes, nod at their small talk, and keep my mouth shut. It's not like I'm lying, not exactly. The shop's real enough. I love the smell of fresh grounds, the hiss of the steamer, the way people soften when they take that first sip. It's mine, a piece of me I built from scratch. But it's not the whole story. Not even close. See, I've got secrets they'd never guess. The shop's just a front, a cozy little mask I wear while the real me moves in the shadows. I own things, big things. Companies, properties, accounts they'd choke on if they knew. But I don't flaunt it. I drive a beat-up truck to work, park it out back where no one cares to look. The fancy cars, the ones registered under a holding company nobody's heard of, stay tucked away in a garage across town. My assistant, a sharp woman named Tara, handles the real business, meetings with bankers, investors, CEOs who don't know my face until I want them to. I've got a system, a rhythm, and it works because nobody suspects a thing. Why would they? I'm just Cole, the guy who married up, the one they pat on the head and forget about. Gregory's too busy counting his millions to notice the way I watch him, the way I listen when he brags about his latest deal. Bianca's too caught up in her charity luncheons and designer dresses to see the papers I sign when she's asleep. They think I'm small, and I let them. It's safer that way for now. This morning, the shop's quiet when I unlock the door. I flip on the lights, start the grinder, and let the routine take over. The first customer's an older guy, a regular who likes his coffee black and his newspapers crisp. He nods at me, mumbles something about the weather, and I nod back. It's simple, this life I show them. Comfortable. But as I wipe down the counter, I can't help thinking about last night. Another dinner at the Sinclair mansion, another round of Gregory's jabs. How's the coffee game, Cole? He'd asked, smirking over his whiskey. Keeping the lights on? The table laughed. Bianca squeezed my hand under the cloth, and I just smiled. They don't know I could buy that mansion twice over and still have cash to burn. They don't know I've been watching, waiting, letting them dig their own graves with every word. One day, they'll see. One day, I'll step out from behind this counter and show them who I really am. But not yet. For now, I pour another cup, listen to the hum of the morning, and keep my secrets close. The game's still mine to play. The air feels thick tonight, heavy with the scent of money and perfume as I step into the Sinclair Company gala. It's their annual show-off, Held at some five-star resort just outside Charleston where the chandeliers drip crystals and the waiters glide around with trays of caviar like it's no big deal. I'm Cole Mercer, and I'm here because Bianca begged me to come. She's in her element, shimmering in a silver dress that hugs her like a second skin, her blonde hair swept up in a way that screams elegance. Me, I'm in a navy suit, tailored, sharp, something I designed myself through a quiet little fashion venture I've never told anyone about. It's not flashy, but it fits me like it was born on my shoulders. I walk beside her, my hand resting light on her back, and I can feel the eyes on us, or on her, mostly. I'm just the shadow, the guy who doesn't quite belong. We step into the ballroom, and it's like walking into a painting. Everything's gold and glass, the orchestra humming in the corner, people laughing too loud because they've got nothing real to say. Bianca's already drifting, kissing cheeks and tossing hellos like confetti. I hang back, grab a drink from a passing tray, something clear and sharp, and let the room swirl around me. Gregory's here, of course, holding court near the center, his gray hair slicked back, his tuxedo screaming power. He spots me across the crowd, gives me that half nod he thinks passes for manners, and turns back to his buddies. I'm not worth more than that to him. Never have been. I sip my drink, the ice clinking against the crystal, and wonder how long I've got to stay before I can slip out for air. These nights always feel like a performance, and I'm the understudy nobody bothered to rehearse. Then it happens, the toast. Gregory climbs up to the little stage, taps his glass with a spoon, and the room hushes like he's some kind of king. He's all smiles, that smug grin that says he owns every soul here. Some of us, he starts, his voice booming, build empires from scratch. We carve our names into the world, brick by brick. He pauses, lets the applause ripple, then his eyes find me. Others, well, they serve cappuccinos. The laugh hits like a wave, rolling through the crowd, sharp and cruel. Bianca's cousins snicker behind their hands. Some guy in a bow tie claps like it's the funniest thing he's heard all year. My fingers tighten around my glass, the cold biting into my skin, but I don't flinch. I smile instead, small, easy, like it doesn't faze me. Let them laugh. Let them think I'm the punchline. They've been doing it for years, and I've learned to wear it like a second suit. I take a slow breath, feel the anger simmering low in my chest, but I don't let it show. They don't know a damn thing. They don't know that this suit I'm wearing came from a company I own, one that's got orders stacked up from New York to Miami. They don't know I've got a stake in half the buildings Gregory brags about, hidden under layers of paperwork and fake names. And they sure as hell don't know I own the bank that's keeping his whole operation afloat right now. Eastbridge Capital. It's mine, every dime of it, and Gregory's emergency loans are sitting on my desk, waiting for my pen. One signature, that's all it'd take to pull the plug. I could end him tonight if I wanted to, watch that smug face crumple when he realizes who's been holding the strings. But I don't. Not yet. I sip my drink again, let the burn slide down my throat, and keep my eyes on him. He's still grinning, soaking up the applause, oblivious to the fact he's roasting the guy who could bury him. Bianca floats back to me, her perfume soft and sweet, and slips her arm through mine. You okay? She whispers, her voice low enough that no one else hears. I nod, give her a quick smile. Fine, I say, and it's not a lie. I've been through worse than a room full of rich idiots laughing at me. She squeezes my arm, and for a second, I wonder if she knows, if she's ever suspected there's more to me than the coffee shop and the quiet nods. But then she's off again, pulled into a circle of women with diamond earrings and fake laughs, and I'm alone with my thoughts. The night drags on, all speeches and small talk, and I play my part, shake hands, make jokes, let them think I'm harmless. They don't see the way I catalog every word, every smirk. They don't know I'm counting the seconds until I can turn this game upside down. As the orchestra picks up again, I finish my drink and set the glass down hard. One day, they'll choke on that laughter. One day, they'll see who's really pouring the shots around here. But tonight, I just stand there, the invisible son-in-law, letting them have their fun. It's a quiet morning at Bean and Ground, the kind I live for. Soft sunlight spilling through the windows, the smell of fresh coffee beans grinding into something warm and alive. I'm Cole Mercer, and this place is my sanctuary, my little corner of the world where I can breathe. I'm behind the counter, apron on, steaming milk for a latte while a couple of regulars chat about the weather at a table by the door. They nod at me, I nod back, and it's easy, like it always is here. People think this is all I've got, this cozy shop with its wooden stools and handwritten menu. They see me wiping down the espresso machine, hear me call out orders, and figure I'm just a guy who lucked into marrying Bianca Sinclair. They're not wrong about the luck part. She's beautiful, sharp, the kind of woman who lights up a room, but they're dead wrong about the rest. This shop's not my whole story. It's barely a page. Years ago, I was a different man. I had a startup, nothing huge, just a tech idea I cooked up in a cramped apartment with too much coffee and not enough sleep. It was a platform for small businesses, something to help them track sales, manage inventory, keep the lights on. I poured everything into it, and when a bigger company came sniffing around, I sold it. 8 figures, modest by some standards, but enough to change my life. I didn't blow it on cars or a mansion. I'm not that guy. Instead, I reinvested, quietly, carefully. I built Eastbridge Capital, a holding company nobody's heard of because I made damn sure they wouldn't. It's got its fingers in banks, fintech startups, real estate deals stretching across 3 states. I own pieces of the world Gregory Sinclair thinks he rules, and he doesn't even know it. My name's nowhere near the letterhead, intentionally. I've got people like Tara, my assistant, running the show out front while I stay in the shadows. Freedom's what I wanted, not fame, and this setup gives me that. The coffee shop came later. I bought it on a whim after Bianca and I got married. A little place that was going under until I turned it around. It's not a front, not exactly. It's real, something I love. I like the rhythm of it, the way the grinder hums and the customers smile when I slide their drinks across the counter. It's my retreat, a place where I can step away from the suits and the boardrooms and just be Cole. But it's also my cover. Nobody looks twice at a guy pulling shots of espresso all day. They don't wonder where the money comes from, how I afford the house Bianca and I live in, or why I don't flinch when Gregory tosses his insults my way. They see the apron and stop asking questions. It's perfect, really. Lets me move through their world without them ever suspecting I'm playing a bigger game. This morning, as I hand a black coffee to a guy in a faded jacket, I think about how it all started. Back when I sold that startup, I could have gone loud, bought a yacht, flashed the cash, made sure everyone knew my name. But that's not me. I grew up with nothing, just a single mom who worked doubles to keep us fed. I learned early that loud gets you noticed, but quiet gets you power. So I built my empire brick by brick, silent as a whisper, and watched it grow. Eastbridge isn't just some side gig. It's a machine. Mid-sized banks answer to me. Fintech apps I funded top the charts, and real estate portfolios fatten my accounts while I'm here steaming oat milk. I've got 3 hedge fund managers on my payroll, guys who'd laugh if they saw me in this apron. Sometimes I laugh too, thinking about it. Like when Bianca's cousin smirked at me last week and said, "He makes great lattes." I just grinned and said, "Yeah, I also signed the payroll for 3 hedge fund managers." He thought I was joking. They all do. I finish the latte, slide it to a woman with a laptop and a tired smile, and wipe my hands on a towel. The shop's humming now, a steady flow of people coming in for their morning fix. I move through it like I always do, calm, steady, letting them see the version of me they're comfortable with. But in my head, I'm somewhere else. I'm thinking about the calls I'll take later, the deals Tara's lining up, the numbers I'll crunch when the shop closes. This life I've built, it's a balancing act, 1 foot in their world, 1 foot in mine. Gregory thinks he's the king. Bianca thinks I'm her sweet, simple husband, and I let them. It's safer that way. Keeps the pieces in place until I'm ready to move them. As I pour another shot of espresso, the steam rising in soft curls, I feel that familiar itch, the one that says this mask won't fit forever. One day, I'll take it off. One day they'll see. But for now, I'm just the guy with the coffee, and that's enough. The night air hits me like a slap when I step out onto the terrace, the gala's noise fading into a dull hum behind me. I'm Cole Mercer, and I've had enough of the chandeliers and fake smiles for one evening. My navy suit feels tight, not because it doesn't fit, it's perfect, but because I'm carrying more than anyone in that room knows. I lean against the railing, the ocean breeze tugging at my hair, and take a deep breath. The crystal glass in my hand's empty now, just ice rattling around, and I'm thinking about heading back to the truck when I hear heels clicking on the stone behind me. I turn, and there's Layla Cross, Gregory's assistant, her dark hair pulled tight, and her eyes darting like she's scared someone's watching. She's young, maybe 28, sharp as a tack, and the only one in the Sinclair orbit who's ever looked at me like I might be more than a coffee pourer. "Sir," she says, her voice low, almost a whisper, "we need your bank's approval." The loan paperwork was flagged for emergency review. I raise an eyebrow, keeping my face steady even as my pulse kicks up a notch. Emergency? I ask, casual, like I'm just making conversation. She nods, her hands twisting together. Yes, Mr. Sinclair's Midtown project is collapsing. Without that loan, everything folds. Her words hang there, heavy, and I let them settle. The Midtown project, Gregory's big gamble, a shiny tower he's been bragging about for months. I've seen the numbers, the ones he doesn't show the public, because my bank's the one holding his leash. Eastbridge Capital's got the files, and I've got the pen. I nod slowly, letting a flicker of something, maybe amusement, dance in my eyes. Tell Mr. Sinclair I'll review it in the morning. I say, calm as if I'm talking about the weather. Layla freezes, her mouth parting just a little, and I see it click. Her eyes widen, searching my face like she's seeing me for the first time. Not Cole the coffee guy. Cole, the CEO of Eastbridge Capital. The guy who could snap his fingers and sink her boss. She doesn't say anything for a second, just stands there, and I can almost hear the gears turning in her head. She starts, then stops, like she's afraid to finish. I don't help her out, just tilt my head and wait. Okay, she finally says, backing up a step. I'll tell him. She turns and hurries off, her heels clicking faster now, and I'm alone again with the night. I set the glass on the railing, the ice glinting under the terrace lights, and let out a slow breath. This is it, the first crack in the mask I've worn for years. Layla's smart. She'll figure it out, maybe even whisper it to someone else. But I'm not worried. I've been waiting for a moment like this, a chance to let the truth peek out without me having to shout it. Gregory's in trouble, and he doesn't even know it's me holding the lifeline. That toast he gave earlier, the one where he roasted me in front of his fancy friends, echoes in my head. Others serve cappuccinos, he'd said, and they'd laughed. Now he's the one begging, and I'm the one deciding. I shove my hands in my pockets and stare out at the water, the waves rolling in soft and steady. I could sign off on that loan tonight. Keep his project afloat. Let him keep strutting around like the king he thinks he is. Or I could let it sit, let him sweat, let him figure out how deep he's dug himself. Eastbridge has the power here, and I've got Eastbridge. It's a strange feeling, standing out here with the wind in my face, knowing I've got a man like Gregory Sinclair by the throat, and he doesn't even see it yet. I think about the shop, the quiet mornings, the way I built this whole other life while they all looked the other way. The coffee's real. I love it, always will, but it's the smallest piece of me. Out here, under the stars, I feel the weight of everything else. The banks, the deals, the millions I've stacked up while they laughed. Layla's reaction sticks with me, though. That look in her eyes, shock, maybe respect, tells me the game's shifting. She's the first one to see past the apron, and it's a rush, like stepping out of a shadow I've been hiding in too long. I don't know what she'll do with it. Run to Gregory, keep it quiet, maybe just watch and wait. Doesn't matter. The seed's planted now, and I'm ready for whatever grows. I pick up the glass again, roll it between my fingers, and think about tomorrow. I'll go into the office, not the shop, the real office, and pull those loan papers. I'll sit at my desk, the one with my name in brass, and decide what happens next. Gregory's fate's in my hands, and for once, I'm not invisible. The gala's still buzzing behind me, but out here, it's just me and the truth. I smile to myself, small and sharp, and head back inside. One way or another, morning's gonna be interesting. The sun's barely up when I pull into the parking lot of Eastbridge Capital's downtown office, the truck's engine rumbling low as I kill it. I'm Cole Mercer, and today's the day I stop playing small. I step out, my boots hitting the pavement, and tug my jacket straight. Nothing fancy, just a gray blazer over a white shirt. But it's enough. The building's sleek, all glass and steel, the kind of place Gregory Sinclair would strut into without a second thought. Except today, he's coming to me, and he's got no idea what's waiting. I push through the front doors, the air cool and crisp inside, and the receptionist, Emma, a no-nonsense woman with a tight bun, looks up from her desk. "Morning, Mr. Mercer," she says, her voice smooth, professional. I nod back, "Morning," and keep walking. My name's etched in brass behind her, Cole Mercer, CEO, but most folks who come through here don't connect it to the guy in the coffee shop apron. That's how I've kept it until now. I'm barely settled in my office, big windows, dark wood desk, a view of Charleston waking up, when Emma buzzes me. "Mr. Sinclair's here," she says through the intercom. "Send him in," I reply, leaning back in my chair. The door swings open a minute later, and there he is. Gregory Sinclair, storming in like he owns the place, his face red, his tie a little crooked. He's got that look, anger mixed with panic, and it's almost funny how fast the king's crown's slipping. I need to speak to your director, he growls, not even glancing at me yet, his eyes darting around like he's expecting someone else. Emma's voice cuts in from behind him, calm as ever. You have an appointment with Mr. Mercer. Gregory freezes, his head snapping toward her. Mercer, he says, like the name's a bad taste. Yes, she replies, unfazed. Mr. Cole Mercer. Our CEO. She shuts the door as she leaves, and the silence lands hard. He turns to me then, slow, like he's moving through mud, and I see it, the moment his world tilts. His face goes pale, sour milk white, and his mouth opens but nothing comes out. I stand up, casual, and walk around the desk, the loan papers in my hand. Coffee guy, he whispers, his voice cracking like thin ice. I stop, meet his eyes, and set the papers down on the glass table between us. Owner, I say, my voice steady, calm. And this coffee guy just denied your emergency loan. I tap the stack, the red denied stamp glaring up at him, and watch his jaw tighten. He doesn't move, doesn't speak, just stares at me like I'm a ghost who stepped out of the walls. I've waited years for this, years of his jabs, his smirks, his cappuccino cracks, and now here we are, the barista and the tycoon, and I'm the one holding the keys. Cole, he finally says, his tone shifting, softer now, like he's testing the water. You don't understand what this means. I tilt my head, lean against the desk, and cross my arms. I understand plenty, I tell him. I understand your Midtown project's a house of cards. I understand you've been scrambling for cash because your investors are pulling out. And I understand my bank's the only thing standing between you and a very public fall. His eyes narrow, but there's fear there, flickering behind the bluster. You can't do this, he says, stepping closer. Your family. I laugh quiet, sharp, and it stops him cold. Family. I echo. Family doesn't roast me in front of a room full of strangers. Family doesn't treat me like a stray dog Bianca dragged in. You've never seen me, Gregory. Not once. And now you're paying for it. He blinks, and I see the shift. He's not used to being on this side of the table. What do you want? He asks, his voice low, desperate. An apology? Money? Name it. I shake my head, slow, deliberate. I don't want anything from you, I say. I've got everything I need right here. I gesture at the office, the papers, the life I built while he was busy laughing. This isn't about revenge. It's about respect. And you've got none to give. He stares at the denied loan docs, his hands flexing like he wants to grab them, tear them up, make it all go away. But he can't. You're ruining me, he says, almost a whisper. No, I correct him. You did that yourself. I just stopped bailing you out. I walk back to my chair, sit down, and let the silence stretch. He's still standing there, a man who spent his life towering over everyone, and now he's shrinking before my eyes. You've got 24 hours to figure out another lifeline, I tell him, picking up a pen like it's just another day. Eastbridge is done with you. He doesn't move at first, just stares, then turns and walks out, his steps heavy, defeated. The door clicks shut, and I lean back, the weight of it all settling in. I'm not invisible anymore, not to him, not to anyone who's paying attention. The mask's off, and it feels good, like a breath I've been holding too long. I glance at the papers, the red stamp glowing, and think about the gala, the toast, the laughter. They won't laugh now. Not when they see who's really running the show. I'm sitting in my office at Eastbridge Capital, the afternoon sun cutting sharp lines across the desk, when Gregory comes back. I'm Cole Mercer, and yesterday I flipped his world upside down, denied his emergency loan, watched him stumble out of here like a man who'd lost his shadow. Now he's back, standing in my doorway, and he's not the same guy who stormed him before. His tie's still crooked, his hair's a little wild, and there's a desperation in his eyes I've never seen. He doesn't wait for an invite, just steps in, shuts the door, and starts talking. Cole, he says, his voice rough, like he hasn't slept. You don't know what you're doing. This will destroy my company. I lean back in my chair, fingers steepled, and let him go. He's pacing now, hands waving, throwing out numbers, projected profits, investor names, timelines, like they'll change my mind. I don't flinch, don't interrupt, just watch him unravel. He stops, plants his hands on the table, and looks at me, really looks at me, for maybe the first time since I married Bianca. I've built this from nothing, he says, his voice cracking. 40 years, Cole? 40 years of sweat and deals and sleepless nights. You can't just pull the rug out like this. I nod, slow, like I'm thinking it over, but I've already seen the files. Eastbridge's analyst tore through his books last night. Every transaction, every loan, every shady move he's made to keep his empire afloat. Maybe you should have been more careful, I say, my tone even, calm. More careful with your public insults. And your books. I slide a folder across the table, red flags marked in bright ink, phantom assets, debt shuffled around like a shell game. That's not oversight, Gregory. That's fraud. His face goes slack, like I've punched the air out of him. He grabs the folder, flips it open, and scans the pages he knows are true because he cooked them himself. Where'd you get this? He mutters, but it's not a real question. He knows. My people are good at their jobs, I tell him. Better than yours, apparently. He drops the folder, sinks into the chair across from me, and runs a hand over his face. You've got no idea what this'll do, he says, quieter now, almost pleading. The jobs, the families, hundreds of people depend on me. I lean forward, elbows on the desk, and meet his gaze. Then you should have thought about them before you started laundering debt, I say. Before you stood up at that gala and made me the joke of the night. He flinches, and I see it, the memory of that toast hitting him like a brick. Some of us build empires, he'd said, smirking while they laughed. Now he's not laughing. Cole, he tries again, softer. I didn't mean it like that. It was just talk. I cut him off. It was you, I say, sharp. That's who you are. You've spent years treating me like dirt, and I let you. I stood there, smiled, poured your damn coffee, and you never once wondered who I was. Well, now you know. He stares at me, his mouth working like he's got something else to say, but nothing comes. If I go down, he starts, then trails off. I finish it for him. You already did. The moment you opened your mouth last night. I push back from the desk, stand up, and walk to the window. The city's buzzing below, cars, people, life moving on, and I feel the shift inside me. This isn't just about the loan anymore. It's about all of it. The years I've swallowed his crap, the way he's looked through me like I'm nothing. I turn back, and he's still sitting there, deflated, a king without a throne. You've got options, I say, though I know he doesn't, not really. Sell what you can, call in favors, find another bank dumb enough to touch you. But Eastbridge? We're out. He doesn't move, just stares at the floor, and I wonder if he's finally seeing it, the hole he's dug, the one I'm not climbing in to pull him out of. I could have signed that loan. Could have kept his tower standing, let him keep his crown. But why? So he could roast me again next year? So he could keep pretending I'm less than him? No. I've got my own empire, built quiet and strong, and I don't need his approval to sleep at night. You've got till the end of the week, I tell him, walking back to my chair. After that, the creditors will come knocking. Good luck. He looks up at me then, and there's something raw in his eyes, fear, maybe regret, but it's too late for that. He stands, slow, like his bones ache, and heads for the door. This isn't over, he mutters, but it's weak, a last gasp. Yeah, it is, I say, and he's gone. I sit back down, the folder's still open on the table, and let out a long breath. The empire's cracking his, not mine, and I'm the one who swung the hammer. It feels heavy, but right. I've been invisible too long, and now the pieces are falling where they belong. Gregory's not the only one who'll feel this. Bianca's next, and the family, and the world outside these walls. But for now, it's just me and the quiet, and I'm okay with that. I'm home when it all comes crashing down, sitting in the kitchen with a beer I haven't touched, the bottle sweating on the counter. I'm Cole Mercer, and today's been a hell of a ride, denying Gregory's loan, watching his empire teeter, feeling the weight of my own power settle in. The house is quiet, too quiet, until the front door slams open and Bianca storms in. She's a whirlwind, hair loose, eyes wild, her heels clicking sharp against the hardwood. She knows. I can tell before she even opens her mouth. She drops her bag on the floor, stares at me like I'm a stranger, and says, "You did this." Her voice is tight, shaking, and I don't play dumb. Yeah. I say, calm, meeting her gaze. I did. She paces, hands flying to her hips, then her hair, then back again. My father called me, she says, her words spilling fast. He's a mess, Cole. A mess. He said you own some bank, that you killed his loan, that you're tearing everything apart. Is that true? I nod, slow, and take a sip of the beer just to steady myself. It's true, I tell her. Eastbridge Capital's mine. Has been for years. I denied his loan because he's been cooking his books. Bianca. Fraud. The kind that doesn't just hurt him. It hurts everyone tied to him. She stops pacing, stares at me, and her mouth drops open. Years, she whispers. You've had this whole thing, and you never told me? Her voice cracks, and I see the hurt there, sharp and real. I stand up, move around the counter, but keep my distance. I built it, I say, keeping it simple. Started with a startup I sold, turned it into something bigger, banks, real estate, investments. I kept it quiet because I didn't need the noise. Didn't need your dad or anyone else telling me who I should be. She shakes her head, fast, like she's trying to shake my words out. You lied to me, she says louder now. All this time, I thought you were just the coffee shop guy. My husband, the sweet, simple guy who married me. And you're what, a billionaire? Some secret king. I wince at that, but don't back down. I didn't lie, I say. I just didn't tell you everything. You never asked, Bianca. None of you did. You all saw what you wanted. Me in an apron, pouring drinks, staying small so you could feel big. Her eyes flash, and she steps closer, jabbing a finger at me. Don't you dare put this on me, she snaps. You hid this. You let me think. God. Cole, you let my father treat you like trash, and you just smiled. Why? Why didn't you say something? I take a breath, feel the old anger stir, and let it out slow. Because I didn't need his respect, I tell her. Or yours, back then. I built what I built for me, not to prove anything to him. But yeah, I let him talk. I let him laugh. And you know what? I'm done with that now. Done being the stray dog your family kicks around. She freezes, her hand dropping, and I see the tears welling up. You think that's what I saw you as? She asks, her voice softer, breaking. A stray? I shrug, not harsh, just honest. That's how it felt, I say. Every dinner, every party, every time he called me coffee boy, and you didn't say a word. I was invisible, Bianca. To all of you. She wipes her eyes, quick, like she's mad at herself for crying. I didn't know, she says. I didn't know you were this. She gestures at nothing, everything, the life I've kept under wraps. How could I? You never let me in. I step closer now, close enough to see the way her shoulders shake. I didn't let anyone in, I admit. Not because I didn't trust you. Because I liked the quiet. Liked being the guy nobody expected anything from. But that's over. Your dad's crashing, and I'm the one who pushed him. That's who I am now, whether you like it or not. She looks at me, long and hard, and I can see her torn loyalty to her father, the man who raised her, warring with the reality of me, the husband she thought she knew. What am I supposed to do with this? She asks, almost to herself. He's my family, Cole. And you're breaking him. I don't make her choose, not yet. I'm not asking you to pick sides, I say, my voice steady. But I'm not invisible anymore, Bianca. I've got power, I've got a name, and I'm not hiding it to keep him comfortable. If that's too much for you, if you can't handle me being more than the coffee guy, you're free to walk. Her breath catches, and she stares at me like I've slapped her. Walk, she echoes. You'd let me go, just like that? I nod slow. If that's what you need, I say. But if you stay, it's with the real me. No more pretending. She doesn't answer, just turns and grabs her bag, her heels clicking as she heads for the stairs. I don't stop her, don't call out. The door upstairs shuts, and I'm alone again, the beer still cold in my hand. I sit back down, take a long drink, and feel the quiet settle. She's shaken, I get that, her whole world's tilting, and I'm the one who rocked it. But I meant what I said. No more masks, no more swallowing their crap. If she can't handle it, that's her call. For now, I've got my own mess to sort, Gregory's fallout, the business, the life I've been building. The family's cracking, and I'm at the center of it. But I'm not backing down. Not anymore. I'm standing in my office at Eastbridge Capital, staring out the window as the city hums below when the news breaks. I'm Cole Mercer, and the past few days have been a storm, denying Gregory's loan, facing Bianca's anger, watching the cracks spread through the Sinclair family. Now it's gone public, and there's no hiding anymore. My phone buzzes on the desk, a dozen notifications piling up, but I don't need to check them to know what's happening. I turn on the TV mounted in the corner, and there it is, splashed across the financial news. Sinclair empire implodes after secret bank CEO shuts off lifeline. The anchor's voice is crisp, excited, like she's reading a thriller. Sources confirm Cole Mercer, CEO of Eastbridge Capital. And, yes, The unassuming coffee shop owner married to Bianca Sinclair Mercer denied an emergency loan critical to Gregory Sinclair's Midtown project. The fallout? A domino effect threatening to topple one of Charleston's oldest real estate dynasties. I muted. Let the images roll, stock footage of Gregory's buildings, a shot of me pouring coffee at Bean and Ground, pulled from some old local feature. It's surreal, seeing my two worlds smashed together like this. The phone buzzes again, and this time I pick it up. It's Tara, my assistant, her voice steady but quick. It's everywhere, Cole, she says. CNN, Bloomberg, even the local stations. Gregory's spinning it. Gave a statement calling you ungrateful. Says he gave you a chance by letting you into the family. I laugh, short and dry. A chance. I say. He gave me nothing but a target on my back. Tara's quiet for a second. Then, Layla Cross just posted online too. Resigned publicly. She's backing you up, says Gregory's arrogance did him in. I nod, even though she can't see me. Good, I say. Let it burn. I hang up and pull up Layla's post on my laptop. It's short, sharp, and brutal. I worked for Gregory Sinclair for 5 years. I watched him laugh at a man who held his survival in one signature, Cole Mercer. That gala toast was his last mistake. I'm out. The comments are exploding, some calling her a traitor, others cheering her on, most just stunned. I lean back in my chair, the weight of it sinking in. This isn't just about me and Gregory anymore. It's a reckoning, loud and public, and I'm the guy who lit the match. Gregory's out there, flailing, trying to paint me as the bad guy, but it's not sticking. Not with Layla's words out there, not with the truth seeping through the cracks he can't plug. I head downstairs, needing air, and step into the lobby just as a reporter spots me through the glass doors. She's young, eager, shoving a mic my way the second I'm outside. Mr. Mercer, she calls. Any comment on the Sinclair collapse? On your role in it. I stop, look at her, and keep it simple. Gregory made his choices, I say. I made mine. That's all. I push past before she can follow up, heading for my truck. The streets buzzing, people glancing my way, whispering, phones out like I'm some kind of celebrity. I've spent years blending in, and now I'm the guy they can't stop staring at. It's strange, but I don't hate it, not yet. Back at home, the TV's still on when I walk in, Bianca nowhere in sight. She's been distant since our fight, sleeping in the guest room, avoiding me like I'm a bomb she doesn't know how to defuse. I don't blame her. This is a lot, and she's caught in the middle. The news cycles Gregory's statement again, his voice clipped and bitter. I welcomed Cole into my family, gave him a chance, and this is how he repays me. I turn it off, sick of his lies. He didn't give me anything. I took it, built it, earned it while he was busy laughing. The phone rings. Local number, probably another reporter, and I let it go to voicemail. I'm done talking for now. The world's got enough to chew on. Later, I drive to the coffee shop, needing something normal. The regulars are there, sipping their drinks, but they're looking at me different, curious, maybe impressed. Old man Joe, who's been coming in forever, sets his paper down and grins. Heard you're a big shot now, Cole, he says. I shrug, pour him a refill. Just a guy with a coffee pot, I say, and he chuckles. But it's not the same, and I know it. The mask's off, and the reckoning's here. Gregory's empire's crumbling, creditors circling, project stalling, and I'm the name on everyone's lips. I could have stayed quiet, kept the loan flowing, let him keep his throne. But I didn't. I stepped up, and now the world knows who I am. I lock up late, the shop dark and still, and sit at the counter with a cold cup I don't drink. Layla's post keeps running through my head. He laughed at a man who held his survival in one signature. That's it, right there. Gregory thought he was untouchable, thought I was nothing. Now he's scrambling, and I'm standing tall. The public's watching, judging, picking sides, but I don't care what they think. This was never about them. It was about me, about respect, about taking back what I let him steal every time he opened his mouth. I head home, the city lights blurring past, and feel the shift. The barista's gone. The king's here. And I'm not stepping back into the shadows. I'm sitting at my desk at Eastbridge Capital, the morning light slanting through the windows, when Tara walks in with a stack of papers and a grin. I'm Cole Mercer, and the past week's been a whirlwind, Gregory's empire crashing, the news blowing up, my name everywhere. Now it's time to move forward. Auction results, Tara says, dropping the stack in front of me. Sinclair's properties, Midtown, the waterfront lots, a couple downtown buildings, all ours. Dirt cheap, too. I lean back, take the top sheet, and scan the numbers. He's right, They're steals, picked up from the wreckage of Gregory's collapse. Creditors swooped in fast, and Eastbridge was ready. Good. Let's get moving on the rebrand. She nods, already on it, and I feel the shift. This isn't just cleanup, it's creation. I've been planning this for a while, something new, something mine. Coal Groundworks, a passion project I've kept in my head until now. The idea is simple. Take those properties and turn them into something real. Affordable housing, community spaces, places people can live and breathe, not just towers for rich folks to gawk at. Gregory built for ego. I'm building for life. I spend the mornings sketching it out, low-rise apartments with green roofs, a community center with a daycare, maybe a park where kids can run. Tara's on the phone with architects, developers, people who get it. By noon, we've got a plan rolling, and it feels good, better than watching Gregory fall, better than proving a point. This is what I've wanted. Power that does something, not just takes. I don't hide anymore. The coffee shop's still mine. I'm there the next day, pouring espresso, wiping counters, but it's different now. People know who I am. Regulars like Joe grin wider, strangers linger, asking questions. Heard you're some kind of tycoon. A guy in a ball cap says, sipping his black coffee. I shrug, smile. Just a guy who got lucky. I tell him, but they don't buy it. The apron's still on, but the mask's off, and I'm okay with that. Then the call comes, Forbes Local Legends, a magazine I've flipped through at the shop. We want your story, the editor says, her voice bright. From barista to billionaire. People are eating it up. I hesitate, then say yes. Why not? I've spent years in the shadows. Might as well step into the light. The interview's quick, over the phone, and I keep it honest. I tell her about the startup I sold, the quiet years building Eastbridge, the coffee shop as my cover. Why do you stay quiet so long? She asks. I pause, think about Gregory's smirks, the gala toast, the way they all saw me. I didn't need them to know, I say. Not until it mattered. She digs into the Sinclair fallout, how I denied the loan, how it sparked the collapse. Some call it revenge, she says. Was it? I shake my head, even though she can't see. Not revenge, I tell her. Respect. They didn't give it, so I took it. The piece drops a few days later, and there I am on the cover, from barista to billionaire. The man who taught respect the hard way. It's me at the shop, apron on, smiling soft, with a skyline behind me. Bianca leaves a copy on the counter at home. No note, just there. She's still distant, moving through the house like a ghost since our fight. I don't push, let her figure it out. The world's loud now, but I'm settling into quiet again, a different kind. I drive to one of the auction sites that afternoon, a rundown lot Gregory once bragged about. It's empty, weeds poking through cracked concrete, but I see it. Apartments, families, life. I walk the perimeter, boots crunching, and feel the weight lift. This is mine, not his. I'm not the coffee guy anymore, not the invisible son-in-law. I'm the one building something new, and they can't laugh that away. The shop's busy later, a line out the door, and I'm in the thick of it, steaming milk, pulling shots, joking with customers. A kid asked for my autograph, holding up the Forbes cover, and I laugh, sign it with a marker from the drawer. You're famous, he says, grinning. Maybe, I tell him, sliding his hot chocolate across. We're just lucky. But it's more than luck. It's years of work, of watching, of waiting for the right moment. Gregory's gone quiet. Creditors took what was left. His name's mud. But I don't gloat. I don't need to. The reckoning's done, and I'm still standing. Night falls, and I lock up, the shop dark and still. I sit at the counter, the magazine open in front of me, and read the headline again. Billionaire. It's real now, not just numbers in an account. I've got power, a voice, a chance to do something good. Coal Groundworks is just the start, more projects, more change. I'm not loud about it. Don't need to be. The world's watching, but I'm still me, quiet, steady, the guy who knows how to wait. I flip off the lights, head home, and feel the calm settle. They laughed once. Now they see. And I'm just getting started. It's a cool evening when I'm at Bean and Ground, the shop winding down after a busy day. I'm Cole Mercer, and the last few months have been a ride. Gregory's collapse, the public fallout, building Coal Groundworks from the ashes. Now I'm here, behind the counter, pouring a cappuccino for an old man who's got his nose in a book. The foam swirls just right, and I slide it across with a nod. He mumbles a thanks, doesn't look up, and I smile to myself. This place still feels like home, even with everything else spinning around me. The door chimes, and I glance up. Bianca's standing there. No entourage, no flash, just her in a simple coat and jeans. Her eyes are soft, a little red, and she's holding herself like she's not sure she's welcome. I wipe my hands on a towel, keep my face steady, and wait. She steps closer, stops at the counter, and looks at me, really looks, like she's seeing me for the first time in weeks. "You were never small," she says, her voice low, almost breaking. "They just needed me to be," I reply, keeping it simple, honest. She nods, slow, and I see the tears glisten, but she blinks them back. "I'm sorry," she says, and it's real sincere, not forced. "For not seeing you. For letting them. For everything." I don't say anything right away, just lean against the counter and let her words hang there. It's been tense since our fight, her pulling away, me giving her space. But this feels different, like she's finally catching up to who I am. I grab a mug, start pouring her a coffee, her usual, black with a hint of cinnamon, and slide it over. "No bitterness left," I say, tapping the rim. "Just a full-bodied finish." She laughs, soft, and it's the first time I've heard that sound in too long. She takes the mug, wraps her hands around it, and sits on a stool. "I read the Forbes piece," she says, sipping slow. "It's good." "True." I nod, grab a rag, and start wiping down the espresso machine, just to keep my hands busy. "It's me," I tell her. "All of it." She sets the mug down, looks at me again. "I didn't know what to do, Cole. With Dad falling apart, with you being this. I was mad, scared. But I get it now. You didn't owe us anything." I stop wiping, lean on the counter across from her. "I didn't do it to hurt you," I say. "Or him, even. It was about me, about not being the guy they walked over anymore." She nods, her fingers tracing the mug's edge. "He's gone quiet," she says. "Sold the house, moved somewhere smaller. He's not fighting anymore." I don't say anything to that, just let it sit. Gregory's done, and I don't need to kick him while he's down. "And us?" I ask, keeping my voice even. She looks up, holds my gaze. "I don't want to walk," she says. "I want to try. With you, all of you, not just the coffee guy. It's not a promise, not a fix, but it's something." I nod, slow, and pour myself a coffee too. We sit there, the shop empty now except for the old man in the corner, and it's quiet, comfortable, like it used to be before everything blew up. "I'm still me," I tell her. "The shop, the coffee, it's not a lie. Just not the whole story." She smiles, faint but real. "I like that story," she says. "And the rest of it too. I don't push for more, don't need to. She's here, and that's enough for now." I finish my coffee, glance out the window at the city moving slow beyond the glass. It's strange how it all turned out. I spent years invisible, letting them laugh, building something they couldn't see. Now the world knows, Gregory's down, I'm up, and the pieces have settled. I think about the gala, that toast, the way they roared while I stood there with a smile. They don't laugh now. They can't. I've got Eastbridge, Coal Groundworks, a name that means something. But this shop, this little corner, it's still where I feel right. I lock up after Bianca leaves, promising to talk more at home, and stand outside, the night air cool on my face. I think about justice, how it brews quiet, slow, until it's ready. Gregory thought he held the power, thought I was nothing. But I watched, waited, built my own. Now he's the one fading, and I'm the one standing. It's not loud, not flashy, I don't need it to be. The old man's gone, the shop's dark, and I head to the truck, the keys jangling in my hand. Bianca's waiting, the projects are rolling, and I've got no regrets. Sometimes the world's loudest people overlook the quietest power, I think, climbing in. That's where I won, where I'll keep winning. The engine starts, and I drive home, the city lights fading behind me, the final cup poured.